Where's Rice? Where's Bunny?
And good morrow. Clearly a more chaotic time of morning to begin a walk and talk style video. Not really one for going through the suburbs. Sometimes I guess we're just meant to see something a little bit different. I think a theme there is well captured with the wonderful framing that the dog held. You know, if it's like a Scottish Terrier. I'm trying to think back there, the outer style of it certainly, but it almost had Bichon Frise level maintained hair going on. It was a fine example of a four-legged friend one might not find, and certainly the owner who's invested good time and effort to the maintenance of that, or the upkeep of that, their companion. Where's the money for the rights? Which is interesting, because I'm about to walk into parkland. And arguably it's the concept of the common. It's given for everyone, which I'm a big fan of. The idea of communal. The mother of my child used to believe that you could do such things like that with a car. Of course, the concept of sharing a car, something itself which has a lot of upkeep. Everyone's driving styles can contribute to more or less maintenance. It can prove frustrating if the group sharing it is from a small pool and not of good income, such that they're relaxed with the spending of said assets. It's amazing how many of our fears drop away, though, when the basis of where's the money coming from is dealt with. It's certainly the concept of community or communal sharing of assets, something like the land in between our dwellings. Most of us don't really care for the weekend upkeep of having to mow our lawns, which serve us no purpose. One of those things that's a societal set trend. I believe it was the wealthy in the land of the great UK that went, we're going to grow the world's most redundant crop over a huge amount of space around where we live, potentially as a way to show how much free money we have. Well, it's never free, is it? So we all go on following some set societal trend. Let's grow a redundant crop around every one of our dwellings. Let's water it. Let's put resources into it for it to serve us basically no purpose, except for a societal concept of this is what's right, or this is what sets us up or serves us well. We don't need to give somebody a diamond ring when asking for a hand in marriage. Why the diamond? Frost me, Matthew McConaughey might say. Well, his character anyway. All right. Well, I'm glad we're off the beaten track. Not really, it is a beaten track. Again, it's been upkept, more or less. It's maintained in such a way that I can rely on it. Not having too many branches overgrowing and jutting into me as I walk around. Which gives me the ability to leave my house and safely see my destination in mind and to get there reliably. The benefit of communal maintenance and a supported zone for all, of course, is something that, well, I'm a fan of. I'd like to do that for the creative industries and support centres and all sorts of stuff, to have a range of staff, and then in the process of supplying them their weekly wage, that they don't necessarily need to withdraw it. They have all the things they need on site, from food to entertainment, of course clothing, water, all of, there's a wide variety of things, and it's not the purpose of my video right now to come up with a list. But the nature that very small amount of money can be shared towards the communal aspects, which might include a really good quality theatre, nice leather seats in it, or some such, on site, but also the maintained premises, the pretty or the beauty of the nature and the land around them, be a large part of what I would like to offer, because really it's in the further jobs that comes with the wider skill set. And those further jobs extend to looking after the employees and their retired lives, or the medical systems that might go to supporting them, to just ensuring that they've got fair remuneration for turning up and tending to said grounds. But on the wider scale, also to the fact that from the time they're born, that is their parents of any given worker, is assured their maternity leaves and their time to be focused on family at any given point in their life for whatever reason, and the nurturing of that child through their younger life, such that there is always things that we can do as a group or a community that assist and aid the community as a whole. When we start to see the life cycle as an asset rather than a burden, or rather than something we can just make money off, you can say, well, hang on, aren't I seeing it in such a way as to make money off it? So, well, not really. The mission statement of said organisation would be to prop up and improve the quality of life. I would argue that the greatest return on investment would be the refining of the systems to improve the quality of life. Just such that I could retire a person with no debt, not necessarily any wealth or profit other than that of having done right by my community and right by my family and right by my family name, that I can be happy, ultimately. But we can also say that's a pipe dream, and I must admit I have had my drugs of the sporting. Normally I would consume maybe a sip of water or a few sips of water. I would consume some breath work or consume some focused thought time, such as to try to approach these videos with a clear mind. This morning, just out of determination to, well, the want to roll over and sleep in, I deemed that I was robbing myself of my normal preparation time, if you will. So as I was leaving, I needed to make the coffees for the family, and whilst I was going to put a couple of coffees down, certainly for my missus, I'd just walk on, such that I could go off and do this video and not be needing to make a second coffee so quickly. Intuitively, I actually chose to drink it, and it's a good thing. I like my caffeine. I must admit, for me, it's more social. I like the ability to take sips appropriately when reading news headings or something. You know, the human social aspect is one that many of the hobbies and habits that we have are refined and nurtured. So the ceremony, if you will, of drinking tea is more valuable, arguably, than the tea itself. So, whilst I would say that for my own upkeep, I did have my sips of water, arguably I had them in a cup of coffee, and I'm kind of under the understanding that such a thing is actually more so dehydrating. So, sort of like the equivalent of having an alcoholic beverage with sort of shot of one of those energy type drinks in it, like an upper and a downer simultaneously, which is just a nightmare, right? Like I look at a few times when I'm out in public, if we're driving long distances on the road and we pull up at a restaurant or something where we might ask for a cup of water, and they have no system to give us a cup of water other than to put a couple of cups of ice into a cup and then drop what is normally the water from the coffee machine onto the ice. And they hand you this cup that technically it's water, right? That can be drunken, but the violence of the chemical reaction, arguably, of the molecular level reaction that has just gone on right before getting said beverage. I mean, from an energy point of view, that's it might just be that that's a more uplifting energy drink, right? There's been a lot of invested energy in the freezing of the ice and the heating of the water. And as I say, the violence as the two extremes meet and then sort of normalise somewhere in the middle. But I get back to my drugs this morning, and it's not just the caffeine. It's the tryptophan. It's the milk that I make hot. I don't know if that makes it in a more active state, but it's my understanding that many people talk of the concept of the warm beverage, the warm milk prior to bed, and the benefits that has in terms of trying to get to sleep. But you combine the two, this nicely cappuccino frothed milk and the coffee itself, which I thoroughly enjoy the rigmarole of. In fact, dare I say, I wanted to start this video prior to the process of making it. There's a couple of times I've thought of doing the video and discussing the wealth of asset that is the prior knowledge or learning that goes into making a better cup of coffee. And there's so many aspects to that ritual, and some of them may or may not be needed. I always think of, I reflect on a book skimmed maybe 30 years ago plus in my life. And I believe Carlos Castaneda, in a yucky way of knowledge, I think it might be, way of living perhaps would be fair to say, And he deems the making of a particular preparation that the natives would make, and they would have all these aspects to the creation process. And scientifically, some of those aspects might have actually done things that would arguably change up the composition or change up the active or reagent state of some of the components. Some of them might have a basis in reality, and it might just be leaving it out for 3 days in the sun, or draping it over this and letting it do that. And some of it, of course, might just be superstition. But the reality was that over a large time frame, this recipe had been refined, and the output certainly had changed in its ability or capability because of the efforts or love, servitude, the work that's gone into the process. And so, was it Dr. Yamamoto, the guy that did the water freezing experiments, looking at the crystalline structure of water, and that it didn't necessarily even need the intention, that so much as a symbol or a mantra on the side of a bottle, even if it was covered over, could affect the crystalline state, and that the source of the water too would affect the energy that would be in it, and that when they looked at the frozen cell structure or the frozen crystalline structure of the water, that the energy associated to that said water would be affected. It's amazing. The spiritual old adage of energy flows where attention goes, we find reaffirmation of that in so many of the systems, in so many of the science, the investigations that we use to try to understand the world around us. And so the ritual of these coffee mugs, these cups that I make in the morning, is so many steps. And it certainly is a more flavourful experience for having put the effort in. Now, the partner always makes the statement of, and it's true in the service industry, and any food that's prepared by somebody else generally tastes better, right? And so, again, is it the aspect of love and servitude being done for somebody? I mean, potentially. Whatever the mad scientist culmination is, the process, if the purpose is reached, if the purpose is served, pun intended, served in the case of food, then it's a better process, it's a better product. And whilst I was saying I wouldn't mind doing videos on my process each time I've gone to begin them, the problem is that it requires the fullness of my mind to actually make it happen. That I've just not found the ability to be free-flowing in the moment and to do the video that I whimsically think would have a good dialogue or a good spiel when making. And so, whilst I want to cover the aspects of the love or the due diligence or the maintenance that goes in, and for me it starts with the milking of the pipes, and it's getting the stagnant water out of the pipes before I fill the water machine. We use a water purifier at home, and it uses arguably the passive nature of water just going downhill through gradients of resistance that is the filtration process. And the water it creates is meant to be as good as rainwater. It actually remineralises, and there's some, I don't know if it's phosphorus, I'm trying to think what it is that is added to it again at the end of it all, such that the uptake to the body is very, very easy. It tastes really good, and that's the easy way to know if your body needs something or not, is how easy it is to eat it or consume it when you put it to your mouth. Are you swallowing at the back of your throat, trying to kind of go, oh, this isn't what I'm after right now? Or does the body just take it on board so easily and so quickly, devours it? And the coffees I make are so easy to drink. Like, I couldn't believe how tasty it was this morning. Normally it's the carrot in front of the donkey, me being the donkey, and I use the nature of when I get home from my morning walk and talk, I get to finally have my coffee. I get to finally have some real food or something. It's the motivator to get these done. But in the course of doing these videos, I try to think of nothing else. I'm trying to be present right here. And so the full rigmarole and the spiel I'd love to be able to do with it, from the point of milking the pipes to the prepping or the milking of the coffee machine pipes to get the heat up to the level of, I believe it makes just a better pour, And again, the coffee machine has been turned on well prior to the process starting. There is, when I say again, there's just so many steps that are involved that if we discuss each of them, and where I feel it would make an interesting video is to run the parallels in life each step of the way. What the parallels might be when we put an aspect of preparation in, or an aspect of forethought towards improving any task that we're doing. So being at one with nature, and even being at one with our higher selves, is a very vital thing. Something that it's not just practical, I mean it's essential. Do I feel I missed out today the topic I would be doing? And hence I'm just talking this inane, rather pointless discussion. Yes, I am. This is more the running day of just maintaining the routine. If I'd gotten out of bed at the time I was meant to get out, if I'd jumped out of bed with the imagery of the last thing that I'd been dreaming of, and the visual image of an elderly person that I don't believe I'd ever seen in my life, who'd been discussing with me, and if I hadn't buried those thoughts from my mind, and if the topic, or the essence of what I believe had been given to my subconscious was to be further ruminated on in this video, or in a video, I believe I would have been on topic for what the universe needed for me to perform. But I didn't. As I said, I took the effort of, well, the lack of effort. I took the easy way out and just rolled over and just deemed that I'd rather have more rest. And then the problem is that my mind had begun its routine, like any exercise or anything that you further refine or do on a regular basis. I'd conditioned myself to have these states of thought that I normally do. And so I'd started generating my text spiel in my head. And then, of course, I'm feeling silly because I've got one of two options. I can live in the presence and attempt to continue the dialogue, or I can get caught up in that moment and go, oh, that's a good point. And then in my head start creating a mental list, which, of course, pulls me out of, if you're alternating between left and right brain, whilst the tempering of doing such a thing is what I would do for my cognizant, my day-to-day living. For the start of the morning, really being able to draw on creative freedom is probably where I'd rather be at. And I just believe then that I'm more likely commuting, I guess, if you will, with my thoughts, letting them just come through in such a way that they can be expanded upon or just put out there. I'd like to think that for the expanding upon, that's the nature of the comment section, that people might leave a video, an interest to either have a thought expanded upon or raise a topic for me to discuss, potentially, in a different video. And why would anyone have interest in hearing a regular Joe Blow just discuss something? Well, you're right. What qualifies me to talk inanely over nothing more than anyone else? Well, I would say it's a dedication to the path of always wanting to be a writer. And people would say, well, why then have you not made your money as a writer? And why are you wasting your time, arguably, sidestepped, doing things that aren't that? And my belief is, and this is the crazy thing, is that by not committing to that path, by the daily writing process, I do so because with all the detritus in my life, that will be encoded into the writing. And this gets back to why I would wish to make a safe bastion for creatives, such that they can be nurtured towards their greater fulfillment. Because the truth is, in all the media I see the subconscious or the subtext, the workings of the minds that were making said media, and it just gets encoded into the material at so many different levels, which really then means that the people who consume said media are really just rehashing and suffering somebody else's pains and experiences, which creates the dichotomy of, well, then if you've only got creatives that are living a pure life where they're removed from the pains of the world, then their writings would be removed the common consensus that makes their writing or their materials interesting. Arguably, it's going to be a fine line in between. Again, the tempering of the left and the right, if you will. Processes need to be evolved, but we need to do better. And just, if we just autopilot, right, the quality of this video is basically what we wind up with. Now we can wrap it up and we can doll it up or mask it to pretend it's something better than it is, right? If I was to edit this and put all sorts of nice sharp cuts and animation, all sorts of things, the quality of the material doesn't go up. People would say, oh, it was more entertaining. It's like, yeah, but it was detritus. It was more entertaining junk. I'm talking there figuratively about something that isn't this video necessarily, but just expanding on that thought. And so we need to do better. Arguably, we need more to hit the cutting room floor. We do need a better refinement. The alchemy, if you will, the process of turning the ignorance, the lead, into gold, the illumination. And it is an active process. So for that reason, we need practitioners who are willing to walk the path, who are willing to put the time in, and willing to do the effort. And then from that perspective, to have some commentary or some commentation, some rumination, some reflecting on the thoughts or the themes that others might wish to bring up. Yeah, I think there's something to it. But of course, if somebody didn't understand where I'm coming from when offering, hey, let me help, then they just don't know. And so this gets back to that second dialogue that my conscientious mind, after rejecting the practical human servitude stuff, started going down the mundane path of all the video games I've played recently and the lack of testing in them, right? Hogwarts Legacy is an example, is one that I thought had been intentionally bombed out on the PC platform. And I started misattributing issues that I then blamed on Windows with the 1-2 punch, saying that the page file hits that were now insane on the computer. You know, I was blaming... I just didn't believe that Warner would have hurt their own product as much as they had from patch to patch. But having deemed that the console version is the better experience to play, and having now committed some more time to the console experience, I'm actually seeing the same back-end issues with the streaming of textures that weren't in the launch. I think they're up to version 13 of the software. It's fair to say, for 10 builds or so, the software was fine. And it could stream data in without clearing it out so badly. But what I'm talking about here is that it would be like the footpath in front of me having a very low-grade texture in place. Very, very low grade. And then kicking to the higher quality asset as I get near it. And having played a perfect version on PC for so long, even streaming from one of the world's worst solid-state drives, and never having seen issues on the PlayStation, right? A later build of the software, the development team themselves, they've just done something. Now, on the PC, there was reasons for me to believe that, I mean, it contributed badly by an accident, right? It was done for NVIDIA cards, they say this, but they put out a hotfix patch that intentionally broke the game, as far as I could figure. There was just so much that went wrong with it. Basically, there was no approval process. If we're trying to be positive towards it, and it's like, oh, it was an accident, then there was essentially no testing process, and the quality of current world testers are... Well, my argument would be that they're just not asked to test certain things, and therefore these things fly under the radar, because there's no process for them to communicate the issues that they're seeing, or it's not their job to report said issues, and so these things fly under the radar. But with regards to the data systems working so much harder, I found that I had to move the game onto more performant drives, and I had to find a range of ways to shuffle the data around in my computer very differently to try to get on top of these streaming issues. And dare I say, it's impossible. The current version on PC is just so junk. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. It's not an entertaining product, irrelevant of how much computer hardware you throw at it. It's just not good. But the fact that this can happen to an already released product is, I guess, as a consumer conscientious channel, that would be thematically why I would wish to cover it. But I guess in terms of employ, I mean, if it comes down to it, I'd rather offer my services to certainly these industries. And
if you go up to the park, there's a number of red flowering gums coming into blossom. And there's a lot of rainbow lorikeets. You can get within about 1.5 metres of them at about eye level. So you can't miss them.
Thank you.
You've seen them?
I'll go and have a look. I was actually sort of on the way home to make the next coffee of the day. It's just too glorious and the day is getting on.
Anyway, they're up there. You can't miss them. There's brilliant scarlet trees on the left-hand side of the buildings there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably 2 or 3 lorikeets in each tree feeding off the blossom.
Beautiful.
From you to me away. And they're calm. They're very close to them.
I will go and frame. And this one here, and a Scottish Terrier, is he?
It's called a white West Highland Terrier, so it's basically a Scottish Terrier. They're just known as Westies.
But the name says it all, White West.
Yeah, white West Highland Terrier, yeah.
Look, he's even saying, I've got a moment. He's tending to his feet.
Yeah, no.
He's a well-manicured pet, but you travel around a bit, don't you? The fact that you were downhill when I first saw you, and you've managed to get back up to the top.
About 3/4 of an hour or so I don't quite know how far that is, but she generally leads the way and determines where she wants to go. So.
We need at least 15 minutes to raise our cardiovascular and to actually achieve a purpose from said exercise.
Yeah, we do.
So you got 3 lots of it.
Okay.
Great day. So it's fair to say that the servitude I would care to offer to these gaming companies, dare I say even at this point in time free versus the cost of the licence, but it's a lot more involved than that. If you've got to get non-disclosure agreements sent back and forward, then there's actual staffing time required from people who are paid wages, and so the cost is it's hard to justify to some of these companies unless you've deemed you're a professional enough that it's going to make a difference to their bottom line. And apologies there if we sidetrack a little bit, but you can hear the enthusiasm of people at this time of day in terms of capturing the beauty of the world. I think that's the greater aspect of humankind. But for me, that dare I say, I'm an amateur photographer. I mean, I've been shooting for 25, more than a quarter of a century now, using pretty much manual settings only. And it catches me out because if I pick up a product, I can't. I'm actually no good with the automatic settings. Oh my lord! I've used a lot of different cameras in my time, and some camera systems lack all the manual dials and kind of force you into aspects of automaticness that, to say I'm unfamiliar with, it can catch me out. I like my manual dials. But look, getting back to Warner's product in particular, which is Hogwarts Legacy, it's very sad. For such a great product to have been made so low quality by a range of reasons. But for me, it was really reassuring the last couple of days to have found that the console version suffers just as much. Well, it doesn't suffer as much because the drive speed is ridiculously quick. And it has its own dedicated controller chip such that it doesn't overburden the CPU and then lead to these frame rate bombs that affect the low frame rate, arguably. It's a much more stable experience. And it was just interesting when I was running around finding that the low quality textures were being constantly cleared to the same huge rapid memory cull that's affecting the PC version is also happening on the console version. And when I say it's a massive memory culling, it's ridiculous. I watch it on the PC jump from 14.5 gig down to 11, up to 14.5 gig down to 11 or 12, up to 14.5 gig, 2 to 3 times every second. And that means all the back-end systems are just dumping and having to reload and having to get all this data again. And it leads to such a burdening that I'm amazed it works at all. And it never used to. The first many versions on PC, it would basically load up to 15.5 gig of VRAM and it would just sit there. And I believe that the chunks of the game world are in 1.5 gig chunks. So they've clearly made the active radius around the player. They've changed up the way that the game is dependent to try to keep the zone in front of the player, and by culling out the area just behind you, and basically they keep the VRAM really down, and then the game seems to get confused with which chunks it's bringing in, and even if you run in a straight line, you just watch it go 14.5, 11, 14.5, 11, 14.5, 11, like 3 times in a second, almost. and the burden on all the subsystems to the machine is ridiculous. But to see that the PlayStation version is also bringing in these textures, that when you're quite close to them, from lower grade assets to higher grade assets, just confirms that the same burdening will be happening to the console. Now, most people won't notice their electricity bill go up when the console has to work so hard, so continuously, just to keep these things happening. And the fact that it can do it at all, and generally fly under the radar and it not be noticed. The problem is, and to a wider angle, this is society. This is where everything is at right now, is that everyone deems it's not really my responsibility, and everything flies under the radar because we don't put the time in, or we don't have the qualified people doing the checklists and feeding them onto the appropriate teams to have them redressed. We can say that all the budgets are being tightened and that nobody, not my job, not my responsibility, is the fair argument from an exhausted or tired population. But the governments don't have more money in the coffers to start building extra branches and extra divisions to deal with extra burdens and extra things that need to be dealt with. And any other time in history, it was just we the people, right? And what we found is with every further tax break we gave to the uber rich, starting from over a century ago, where they used to dedicate to the general public commons and public grounds and wings and hospitals, and they would do things with their wealth to help people. And then the more and more tax breaks that they were given, the more and more, for some reason, they started to reflect on, it's nice to keep more of my money. And I don't know, it could have just been that more and more people were getting wealthy around them, and that the sense of ego that comes with trying to hold on to your wealth and be the next richest person. Money makes money, I guess, being seen in the more rich lists in some ways generates more confidence in you as a person who invests, which therefore generates more from the things you invest in. There could be a range of reasons, but what we found ultimately is that the more that the governments eased off and gave them financial tax breaks, it was at the same time that the amount of just gifts that were being given by the wealthy were starting to just dry up and drop off. And obviously we need these common grounds, but for them to be maintained by the lowest socioeconomic, the people who are having a hard time putting food on their tables, is a burden that they might find is too much. They might not deem, with the 12-hour days they're working and the fact they never see daylight, why would they care for a beautiful park that is something that only people want to use in daylight hours? And the fact that a certain part of their income is just lopped off the top to go towards, communals, is something that might be hard to justify. And so then we get these splits in the political parties that are being pushed to the top in terms of, well, we serve these people's needs better, whilst another party gets in saying, well, we serve these people's needs better, right? And so if we change up the way we do things hierarchically from the top on down, nobody feels so frustrated for the efforts that they put in and for the remunerations that they receive. Of course, we are better when we have a better thinking community, and a more free thinking community, and certainly a more relaxed population, for a range of reasons, either because of less attrition in the workplace such that they can rely on the capability of team members when they pass the ball or they take a day off, things can actually resume at a quality level that they've put so much effort into raising or maintaining, right? At just so many different levels we can do better. And once we start living in the paradigm of, dare I say, paradise, and you can say, well, no, that's just pipe dream, you can't get there. It's like, well, no, we can't get there under the present paradigm, the one where commercial interests is what plays out to matter the most, and that the money needs to be divided into so many different little piles, and it's competing with each other, so that breakthroughs of science in one camp can't be shared with breakthroughs in another camp. Otherwise it empowers them too much to get ahead. If you get ahead, you got more money. If you got more money, you can buy up the competitors. And so it's fierce, these circles. They're just too vicious. And we don't need that anymore. It doesn't serve us, right? The businesses have gotten bigger than governments. The ability for the needs of the people to be met has ceased to happen. Hierarchically, we need to restructure. But the restructuring is towards the mission statement of just quality of life. And so whether my videos are so mundane as to talk about the repairing of video games, or the concept of you know, a cheery cup of coffee, the entertainment across a range of, you know, the relaxation, that the ceremony of tea. Or if we're going to talk about philosophy of man, and by man I mean humankind, I don't wish to be caught up in political correctness diatribes. If anyone knew me, they would know that I was raised by a single mother and believe 100% equal rights for women. Dare I say I was raised too much in that camp, to the point where, from the viewpoint of even being in primary school and seeing the girls get to go to recess earlier than the boys, because the boys would be using their so-called muscle mass that served us no good since the Industrial Revolution, that man is now a redundant being. But the boys would be held back to set up the chairs for the next class. And it's like, well, hang on, why do the girls get more time, right? So, like, just if you've got a negative state of mind, and if you're looking to see examples, the nature of the world being as large as it is, we will all see examples for whatever we are looking for. I guess we ultimately need to just take a step back and go, well, what really matters? Does a few seconds of recess time really matter to the greater human race? Is it reason enough to get up and complain about it and find other people who also wish to complain about it and to unify? Probably not. But if all of humans' existence going forward was based on set actions being a given, right? Not a gift, but a given, then yeah, maybe. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all feel like giving? Wouldn't it be nice if we could all be in such a healthy state that we could actually feel empowered to give? Maybe we've just got to start living our life that way to make it a reality. The old notion of build it, that will come. Alrighty, well, with that I'm going to sign out for the morning. I do say well wishes with you. May you have a wonder-filled day.